Hey everybody, we are at Tuesday. I feel like I need to be reminded of what day of the week it is lately. And I could get it wrong, but I'm pretty confident that today is Tuesday. And we are doing Chapter 2 of Guardians of Magic, Book 8 of the Lyra Chronicles. The link to the YouTube channel is in each day. And the chapter, if you missed it, will be up on YouTube by dinner time. Thank you, Grace. Things are going well here. Went to curbside pickup for the grocery store this morning. Left it, my son was smart and reminded me to leave a tip for the guy in the back of the car because, without them, what would we do? The clerks working in the grocery store. And hello, Diane. It's always nice when I see you pop up. And so things are going well. The weather here is great. There's Lois. Somebody's walking by. I'm doing gratitude lists with other people because you train the brain in which direction to look. Hi, Mike. Glad you're here too. And this will end at some point. We just don't know when. But in the meantime, maybe we can develop habits that will help. And Leela, that's her tail you can see wagging in the background. Leela, the pit bull, has joined her. Two girls. Anyway, let's get started on Chapter 2. Hopefully, Lois will calm down. Hopefully she'll go outside and bark. I left the back door open for them. And maybe one of these days we can do a tour of the house as a special. And now she's standing next to me. So maybe we can do a tour of the house also. This is the house the troll built from the Lyra Chronicles. And thankfully I moved in a year and a half ago before all of this. So there are blessings everywhere or things to be positive about, however you want to look at it. And I have a choice every day what I choose to look at. And I have all of you, so things are good. Okay, Chapter 2 of Guardians of Magic. Lyra sat down at her desk across from Hagen. Explain it to me again, slowly this time. Lyra took a bite of the Mexican hot chocolate donut as Hagen glanced down at the familiar pink box. Donut after. She pulled the box closer to her. You say that like I have no self-control. Hagen sat down and slapped his hands on his desk. I have plenty. There's always more donuts where these came from. Hagen laced his fingers together and pursed his lips. You're running a very good donut experience for me. Tell me already. Lyra put down the donut and brushed her hands, giving Hagen the dead fish look. Okay, good. Fine. Now I'm ready. He winced, trying to find the right words. Look, I think it's time I hang back from the big operations. He waved his hands around at the large open space. Back you up from here and work on more local cases that involve fewer dark forces that can reach out and throw us around like rag dolls. Hagen took out the white cotton handkerchief he always had at the ready in his back pocket and wiped his forehead. Lyra didn't say anything, even as her eyebrows went up. She picked up her coffee and slowly took a sip, not taking her eyes off Hagen. You're dicking me around right now, aren't you? Nice, Barons. Look, I'll say it. That last battle took a little something out of me. Hell, I think I was dead for a few seconds there. And I have this whole thing going with Rose that I like to call a good life. Oh, for pity's sake, Baron, say something. What kind of asshat do you think I am? I could say no. We started this together. We ended together. Geez, Hagen. Lyra gave him a crooked smile as she took another sip of coffee. Of course, this means I'll have to heckle you over an earpiece. Best part of the job. Hagen let out the breath he was holding and mopped his face again. Well, that goes without saying. Hell, maybe I'll turn out to be more use as tactical behind the scenes. You know, I was a little worried you might be... That's a long way around the barn to say I'm selfish, you know? Lyra got up from her desk and walked around to Hagen. You put in your time, Hagen. And you've stood beside me at more than one battle. You get to call it when it's enough. Good for you. What's this? Are you about to hug me? Don't do that, Barons. Oh, geez, partners don't hug. It's in every manual. Lyra stopped short and patted him on the back. Best partner I could ever have. Thank you, Hagen. I mean it. For everything. Okay, well, then, eat your donut. Hagen swallowed hard and changed the subject. Hey, you think Yumfuck would hang out here at the office occasionally? If you put in cable and more snacks, you overshot. Where is he anyway? I don't ask myself those kinds of questions anymore. Something about bat fuck. Hagen let out a snort of laughter. Seems he's joined the family business. Hey, I heard about the good news. A wedding. You'll have to figure out how to throw a bridal shower. What a year you've had, Barons. Yeah, a little bit of everything. Reconstituted an entire family, even a dad, and found out my relatives didn't come from Ireland after all. All wrapped up with a few run-ins with some dark mist no one can really explain. Lyra felt the edge of something. Mom is over the moon. I'm happy for her, she said, distracted. Hagen let out a small belch, patting his belly as he reached into the Voodoo Donuts pink box. You're going to have to work on the whole being happy thing. Your demeanor lacks a certain something. I have the feeling I'm missing a pretty important clue. Can't quite put my magic finger on it. You will. You always do. Lyra shook her head to clear it. Hey, remember your motto. There's always more. Might want to slow down just a little. You're not retiring just yet. I'll still need you just as much backing me up here while I'm out there chasing boogeymen. Barons, that's the nicest thing you could have said to me, said Hagen, chomping down on a maple old-fashioned. We're going to go to chapter 3 because chapter 2 was so short, so we'll do 2 chapters today. Bonus, chapter 3. The young wizard, Toby Wheeler, stood in the field in a silver reflective vest, directing the cars in the late afternoon sun with a flashlight to make sure no one headed for the deeper part of the pasture and tore up the good Kentucky grasslands. Toby kicked a piece of sod with the toe of his sneaker, still frustrated that he was so far away from the action. Nothing more than a glorified orange cone. A white Volvo station wagon parked at the end of the line, and a well-dressed middle-aged couple got out, ignoring Toby and heading toward the gravel road that led to the manor in the distance. Toby held up both hands, giving them a double dose of the middle finger, dancing his hands back and forth. He eyed his wand in his pocket and slid it out, holding it lightly in his hand. So tempting. Using a wand would have been easier, but the possibility of prying eyes was too big, and it was impressed upon him not to break the law. Toby was well aware of the consequences of crossing his new employers. After all, he was the nephew of one of the oldest ruling families, making him a kind of nobility. But his mother had run away from them all as a teenager and turned her back on the lineage, choosing instead to ignore the dark magic and marry a wizard serving the Silver Griffins, the worst kind of betrayal. The moment Toby turned 18, he decided to rectify that mistake and ran right back to the old families, expecting a warm embrace. Instead, he was met with wary looks and given menial assignments. Still, it's like Lois can sense the dark families. Still, it was better than the future he had back home with his parents, college, and then off to the cubicle life. No magic in there at all. Hey, kid! It's like background music for the story. Hey, kid! An overly muscled wizard with a buzz cut to hide the lack of hair, and wearing an ill-fitting navy blue sport coat, stood impatiently at the edge of the road, gesturing to Toby, with his meaty hand to follow him. He was one of the regular muscle that hung around the family at the ready when muscle was more appropriate than magic. Toby startled and dropped his wand into the grass, scrambling to pick it up. Damn, what an amateur! Drop my own wand! He picked it up and wiped it off across his pants, leaving a damp splotch. He was still muttering as he slid the wand into his pocket and eagerly followed the wizard down the path, jogging to keep up with the man. I would never use my wand. Not without orders. The words sputtered out of Toby, and he could feel the sweat under his thin cotton shirt. The chill in the air of an early spring Kentucky cold front was making it worse, and the vest was no protection against much of anything. Forget about it, kid. Not my department. Although, word to the wise, don't move a muscle unless someone tells you which muscle and how to use it. If you fuck up badly enough, it won't matter who you're related to. The wizard tapped a thin, jagged purple scar along his chin. I speak from experience. He gave a smile that was angry more than anything else. A certain kind of loyalty is expected around these parts. What kind of loyalty is that? Toby was still walking fast enough just to keep up with the wizard's long strides. Absolute. Keep your head down when you get in there and just listen. Think of all this as a kind of schooling, and you just might survive. Toby swallowed hard. Survive. That is hardcore. They walked the rest of the way in silence as Toby did his best to regain his composure and match the stony demeanor of the bulky wizard. The wizard looked over at Toby just as they got to the stone steps leading up to the tall wooden doors, and he let out a snort. You're too skinny and young to pull off that mug. Save menacing for another day. How about you go for invisible and do your best to fade into the background and just watch? Remember what I told you. Observe everything. Participate in nothing, no matter what you hear. Not a gasp, not a chuckle. And under no circumstances, if you like that geeky look you've got going and want to keep it, do you say anything. Got it? Toby nodded hard and snapped his mouth shut, taking a deep breath and headed up the steps. Lose the vest, kid. You're not parking cars now. Toby quickly slid out of the vest and dropped it by the door as the wizard pushed open the heavy wooden doors that were brought over from an old castle in Romania. Toby's uncle thought they added a certain ambiance to the whole effect. They passed quickly through the front hall and down a short hallway that curved to the right to a far wing of the house. They entered the great ballroom just as the doors were being closed, and the wizard turned and gave Toby a sturdy shove toward a far wall, where other lackeys and servants were standing quietly. Their eyes were all focused on the long, wide wooden table set up in the center, where the heads of all the old families were already seated. At the end of the long table sat an older wizard with wavy silver hair and a long, straight nose that looked like it could touch the top of his full lips. He was wearing a jet black suit and black tie against a white shirt. At the cuffs were silver wolves, and on his hand was a large signet ring bearing two wolves making the infinity sign. Hanging overhead were different woven banners with the different family crests representing the old wizarding families of dark magic, since they first came together thousands of years ago and formed an alliance. Hey, Toby gave a nod to the young witch standing closest to him. She looked at him long enough to give him a withering look and flick her long brown braid off her shoulder. Okay. Toby put his hands behind his back and stood up straighter as he looked around the room. The wizard who escorted him into the room was standing against the far wall with other witches and wizards, and Toby quickly caught on to a certain hierarchy in the room that started with the most powerful sitting at the table and gradually went around the room till it stopped squarely at the crowd where Toby was standing. Toby let out a defeated sigh, garnering a few looks from the young witches and wizards right around him. He looked across the room and noticed the beefy wizard staring at him and straightened back up, determined to get this right. You can do this, Toby. Hell, you belong at that table. Be the observer. Be the observer. Sirius Pickering lifted his hand and a silence fell over the room. He raised his wand high over his head. Extemporius. The sound of water pouring down could be heard from outside the walls. Every head turned toward him as he lowered his hand and let out a deep breath, waiting. The time has come to push back against the silver griffins, he finally said. A spell had been cast so that his deep baritone easily filled the room as he rested his hands on the table. The time has come to make our presence known to the human population. A small murmur of voices went around the room, but harsh looks from others quickly silenced them. Toby watched eagerly, pressing his lips together, determined to make a good impression, or at best, no impression at all. It's time we used our newest talent to persuade others that we are not passive players anymore, and it would be in their best interest to bring us to the bargaining table. We should not have to bargain with anyone. Agnes, an older witch with long blonde hair that was caught up in a neat low bun, slammed her fist onto the table. Toby shook and wanted to let out a gasp, but was too afraid. He dug his nails into his palms and watched, eyes wide, to see what would happen next. Sirius was breathing harder, his chest rising and falling, but he did nothing to silence the witch. We have everything we need to gain the advantage. The beasts are ready. Time will not always be on our side. If we wait till magic begins its return to Earth, she shook her head. It may not be as easy as it is right now. Have you forgotten who sat in this seat not too long ago? Your own brother served this council for over 20 years before he was swallowed by that dark menace. Sirius's voice was gradually getting louder till it was booming and echoing off the walls. To this day, we still do not know what that was that ate his essence and absorbed his magic from the inside out. Sirius raised his fist in the air, shaking it with fury. His body still walks among us, but none of us can say he still exists in any realm, or what the hell took him from us. The crystals in the chandelier over their heads shook gently, making a tinkling noise as the banners swayed. An older witch with long jet black hair hanging straight down her back took a sip of tea from a pale pink bone china cup, gently setting it down. Juliana Pickering looked unruffled by any of the drama. Sirius, my darling, Agnes makes a valid request. She arched a carefully manicured black eyebrow, the only sign of impatience, the gentle tapping of her red nail against the fragile china cup. We have managed to get the mortality rate down to a respectable 50%, and have created enough shifters under our power to at least make a statement. Not enough of them to stop an army. We don't need that, my dear. We just need enough of a demonstration to let them know what we're capable of doing. Let their own fears come up with the rest. A young wizard with dark hair slicked back against his scalp, spoke up. Toby recognized his older cousin Emmerich. Are we certain that these new shifters will obey us once they're out in the field? They may just run off, back to their families or worse, not survive even a skirmish. Don't doubt your mother, dear. It's not a good look for you. None of them will return to their families, said Sirius. They're too afraid of their new powers and ripping their own flesh and blood to pieces. Sirius let out a deep-throated laugh. I expect we would lose some in a fight, but we'd learn from the experiment. Perhaps you're right, Juliana, as ever. Agnes frowned at being overlooked, but held her silence. No one at the table ever pressed a point but so far for fear of the consequences. These are strange times we're in. Even the suggestion of power returning is upsetting the balance of power that we have quietly enjoyed all these years. Sirius sat forward in his high-backed upholstered chair. His face grew sour as he spoke. We are being challenged from every side, and it's not in our nature to sit back and quietly take it. The Silver Griffins would tie our hands, and at one point, we might have listened. Toby saw his uncle glance over at him, but he stared back blankly. The wizard across the way gave him a nod of respect. But some dark mist is hunting our kind. Sirius looked over everyone's heads at the table off into the distance. My oldest friend is a bag of flesh for some unknown host, and 2 other wizards and a witch have disappeared without a trace. Even some of our younger ones, teenagers, have gone missing. You still haven't mentioned our greatest enemy. Sirius snapped his head around, anger returning to him. He raised his wand and shoved Juliana's chair backward away from the table, surprising everyone. Do not test me, not even you. I am well aware of the bitch that is out there, growing stronger all the time. Juliana stayed where she was, saying in a low growl, say her name. I'm not afraid of her. This mongrel who's part elf, part human, and even has some trace of witch in her. She surrounds herself with amateurs. We have defeated worse. Say her name. Lyra Barons. Lyra fucking Barons. He shook his fist at the banners as the banner swayed overhead. Juliana looked up at the witches and wizards ringing the large room standing near the tall windows. Learn this name and get to know your enemy. Her voice was low and icy. She holds the fucking light inside of her and is learning to bend the very essence of magic to her will, said Agnes. Juliana shrugged, not bothering to look at Agnes. Lyra Barons is one very young being against thousands of years of a strong alliance and a new army of shifters. This may not be easy, but we are used to struggle. We will get what is ours in the end. The bitch is only another obstacle in a long line of them, and like all that have come before her, she will not survive what's coming. You sound sure of yourself. Well, of course, Sirius. That dark mist that hunts us, hunts her as well. It even seems drawn to her, and to that same light. We will meet her in battle, but perhaps we can draw the darkness there too, and just get out of the way. That is Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Hello, Nancy and Mike and all the Mikes, and hello, John, and of course, Diane and everyone watching. And that was pretty exciting. So that's the first 3 chapters of Guardians of Magic. And I will be back tomorrow at 1 on Wednesday and do Chapter 4. Whenever there's a super short chapter, we'll just do 2. And like I said, the link is always going to be on the post for the YouTube channel. If you missed it, the chapter will be up on YouTube by dinner time. And today I am grateful for you guys. I'm grateful the lawn got mowed and I wasn't the one mowing it. And I guess that guy's grateful he had a lawn to mow. And we'll just keep doing this day after day. The book after this will be probably be War Mage unless you guys speak up and say you want something else. I'm going to go, I've got a Lyra book to finish, a brand new one, be out soon. And the adventure continues. Stay safe, find some joy today. Keep writing to me if you want. I write, everyone who writes to me, I write you back, as Mike will tell you. And I'm thinking of you, and I love you all, and have a good day.